the nanny slept with the millionaire's son. And what happened next will shock you. If someone had told Emily Carter that a babysitting job could completely change her life, she would have laughed, tired sarcastically. When you're living in a rundown apartment in South Chicago with a 4-year-old daughter who often asks, "What's for dinner tonight, Mommy?" every opportunity sounds like a distant fantasy. That morning, the alarm blared at 5 a.m. Emily opened her eyes to darkness and the damp, peeling ceiling above. She stayed still for a moment, listening to Lily's steady breathing, her little girl still curled up under a faded blanket. The apartment was barely over 400 square feet, but it was their entire world. "Mommy," Lily mumbled in her sleep, clutching her worn-out teddy bear. "Go back to sleep, baby," Emily whispered, kissing her daughter's forehead before gently slipping out of bed. Barefoot on the cold floor, she walked to her old desk and opened her laptop. 3 design projects awaited, each paying under $50, but maybe enough to cover the electric bill. Just as she opened Photoshop, her phone buzzed. A call from Sophie, her best friend since college. "Em, listen!" Sophie's voice was buzzing with excitement. "I just heard about a babysitting position in Lincoln Park. The pay is insane. You have to try." "Babysitting? I have no experience, aside from raising Lily," Emily replied, uncertain. "Exactly. That's all you need. They're desperate. The kid, apparently difficult. Every nanny quit. But if you can manage, the money could get you through the whole year." Emily looked over at Lily, still peacefully asleep, then back at the stack of bills pinned to the fridge. She bit her lip. "Okay, give me the number." 2 hours later, while making breakfast, thin oatmeal again, the phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, Emily Carter?" A deep, firm male voice. "Yes, this is she." "This is Nathan Brooks. I was told you're interested in the nanny position?" Emily swallowed. "Yes, sir. I have a 4-year-old daughter, so I'm very familiar with children." "You have a daughter?" The voice suddenly turned cold. "Yes, but it doesn't interfere with my work. I have someone reliable to care for her when needed." "Thank you." Click. Emily froze, staring at her phone. Lily emerged from the bedroom, rubbing her eyes. "Are you sad, Mommy?" Emily knelt and wrapped her daughter in a hug. "No, sweetheart. Mommy's never sad when she has you." But deep down, her heart was breaking again. Another door slammed shut, another rejection because she was a single mother. 3 days later, the same number called. "Emily Carter?" Same voice, but softer now. "I've reconsidered. Can you come in for an interview tomorrow morning?" Emily could barely believe her ears. "Yes, sir. What time?" 9 a.m. I'll text you the address." Moments later, she opened the message. A Lincoln Park address, somewhere she'd never dreamed she'd be invited. Emily looked over at Lily, coloring in the kitchen corner. Maybe, just maybe, this was the opportunity they'd been waiting for. Emily was up by 5 a.m., even though the interview wasn't until 9. She hadn't slept a wink. All night, one question had been echoing in her head. What if this is the turning point? She wore the only dress that looked remotely professional, borrowed from Sophie. Her hair was tied back neatly, and a touch of pale lipstick added the finishing touch. Lily was still asleep, already dropped off with their elderly neighbor, Mrs. Agnes, who often helped Emily when she had deadlines. "Good luck, sweetheart," Mrs. Agnes smiled. "You deserve a good break." The commute took over an hour and a half. A packed subway, a crowded bus, a fast-paced walk through unfamiliar neighborhoods. Emily had never stepped foot in Lincoln Park. The tree-lined streets and picture-perfect homes felt like something out of an interior design magazine. When she arrived, Emily stood in front of a sleek, glass-covered building with a marble-floored lobby. She hesitated before entering, then was guided by a doorman to the top floor. "Penthouse," he corrected curtly, pressing the elevator button while casting a judging glance. The elevator doors opened directly into a hallway lined with glossy walnut wood floors. It was so quiet that Emily could hear her heartbeat echoing in her chest. A man appeared at the entrance of the living room. Nathan Brooks, tall, broad-shouldered, in a navy button-down and tailored slacks. His dark hair streaked with premature silver and gray eyes colder than a Chicago winter. There was something unmistakably exhausted about him. "You're Emily?" he asked. "Yes, thank you for giving me this chance. Come in." They sat on a cream-colored leather sofa in a minimalist living room. A large abstract painting loomed over them. It likely cost more than her entire apartment. "Why do you want this job?" Nathan asked, straight to the point. "I need stability," Emily replied, steadying her voice. "Freelance design isn't enough, especially when you're raising a child." Nathan stared at her for a long moment. "Why didn't you mention your daughter in your application?" "Because it doesn't affect my ability to do the job. I've raised Lily on my own since she was born. I know how to handle children, in good times and bad." He nodded slowly. "My nephew, Ethan, he lost both parents in a car accident. He's been with me ever since, but he hardly talks to anyone. Every nanny lasts maybe a few weeks." Emily took a breath. "Can I meet him?" Nathan stood and led her down a long hallway. They stopped in front of a door covered in superhero stickers. He knocked gently. "Ethan, there's someone here who'd like to meet you." Silence. Emily crouched, lowering her voice near the doorknob. "Hi, Ethan, I'm Emily. I have a daughter named Lily. She loves superheroes too. Who's your favorite?" A few seconds of silence. Then a whisper. "Spider-Man." Emily smiled. "Lily's all about Batman. She says he's brave because he doesn't have powers, but still fights for people." The door cracked open. One big, curious eye peeked out. "You really have a daughter?" "I do. Her name's Lily. She's 4. She's my whole world." The door opened wider. Ethan, skinny, in Spider-Man pajamas, messy hair, and eyes too sad for someone so young, looked at her. "Can she come here sometime?" Emily smiled warmly. "If your uncle says yes." "Absolutely." Behind her, Nathan stood frozen, quietly watching the moment unfold, his expression unreadable, but something was shifting in his eyes. Emily began her trial week with a cautious heart, but a hopeful one. Every morning she arrived at Nathan's apartment by 9 a.m., having left Lily with Mrs. Agnes. The commute was long, but she never complained. Something was changing here, not just in Ethan, but in her too. On the first day, Ethan kept his distance. Emily didn't push. She simply sat nearby, telling stories about Lily, asking gently what colors he liked, which superhero was his favorite, what food he preferred. Ethan didn't say much, just nodded or shrugged, but his eyes had softened. "What would you like for breakfast?" she asked kindly. Ethan shrugged again. "Pancakes?" A small nod. Emily smiled. Progress. Whenever Nathan left for work, always in a perfectly pressed suit, Ethan tensed up. He'd sit hunched over his cereal, barely touching it. "He gets mad if I don't finish," Ethan murmured. Emily sat beside him, her hand gently rubbing his back. "How about we make a deal? You eat what you can, then we play for a bit. Sound good?" Ethan looked up at her, truly looked, and nodded. They began forming small routines, coloring together, building Lego towers, making homemade slime. Emily never forced interaction. She waited, listened, and earned his trust piece by piece. One afternoon, while they were doing a puzzle, Ethan asked, "Do you think, if I'm good, my mom sees me and feels happy?" The question caught in Emily's throat. She reached out and placed her hand over his. "I believe she's very proud of you, sweetheart, and she's watching over you. From somewhere peaceful?" Ethan lowered his gaze, but he didn't hide his emotions anymore. A few days later, Nathan came home earlier than usual. He found Ethan and Emily sitting on the living room floor, coloring. Ethan giggled softly, hands smudged with ink, face lit up in quiet joy. "Miss Emily said I should outline first, then color in. Makes it look nicer," Ethan said, proudly showing off his drawing. Nathan stood there, stunned. He couldn't remember the last time he saw Ethan smile like that. Genuine, unguarded. That evening, as Emily was about to leave, Nathan walked her to the door. "What's your secret?" he asked. Emily smiled, pulling her coat tighter. "I was once a child who needed an adult to truly listen." Nathan said nothing, but his silence was heavy with thought. On the train ride home, Emily looked up at the city skyline. Beneath the amber glow of the streetlights, she felt something warm stir inside her, something she thought she'd lost long ago. The changes in Ethan weren't dramatic, but to Emily, every little shift mattered. He began speaking more, laughing more freely, and each morning started with the same question. "Is Miss Emily here yet?" On the 6th day of her trial week, Nathan unexpectedly invited Emily to stay for lunch with him and Ethan. She was surprised, but agreed. "Do you know how to cook?" Ethan asked as he washed his hands. "Of course, though I usually make simple things for Lily." "What does Lily like to eat?" The question made Emily smile. "She loves mac and cheese and pancakes." "What about you, Ethan?" "Mac and cheese?" His answer was instant. Nathan, who was standing in the kitchen, overheard the entire conversation. A small smile tugged at his lips. It had been so long since this kitchen had echoed with childlike joy. Lunch was simple, chicken sandwiches and salad. But there was a strange warmth in the air. Ethan shared a story from school, Emily asked gentle questions, and Nathan sat quietly, as though simply listening was enough. As Emily tidied up, Ethan whispered, "Can Lily come over sometime?" Emily glanced at Nathan. He gave a slow nod. "As long as she behaves and you want her to." The next afternoon, Lily stepped into the luxurious apartment for the first time, her eyes wide with wonder. "Mommy, does this place have a flying elevator?" she asked in awe. "Yep, goes all the way to the sky," Emily chuckled. The two children met with a hint of awkwardness, but within minutes they were sitting side by side, building towers, laughter filling the room. From the balcony outside his study, Nathan could see part of the living room through the glass. He watched Emily seated between the two children, Lily busy with her crayons, while Ethan carefully traced the first letters of his name. Both kids leaned toward her as if drawn to the safest place in the world. And she? She was completely at ease in that role, guiding, comforting, without trying too hard. Nathan asked himself, when did Emily become part of my life like this? In the beginning, she was just supposed to be the nanny. Temporary? Someone to keep Ethan safe while he worked. But Emily hadn't just kept him safe. She had brought him back to life. The vacant stare was gone. The silence after school, the withdrawn posture, all of it was slowly replaced with stories, curiosity, and, most importantly, laughter. And Emily. She did it all so quietly, so patiently, so sincerely. She never asked for recognition. She never tried to impress. But somehow Nathan couldn't help but see her differently. That Saturday evening, when Ethan shyly asked, "Can Lily and her mom have dinner with us?" Nathan found himself nodding almost instinctively. The dinner was simple, spaghetti and salad with almond muffins Emily brought from home. Emily helped set the table. Lily folded napkins into little bunnies with Ethan. Nathan listened to his nephew's laughter spill across the table, carrying through dessert. He watched the three of them on the other side of the table, Emily gently reminding Lily not to drop her fork, Ethan pouring water for everyone, and Lily chattering about a missing shoe from her doll, like it was the most precious dinner in the world. "Do you do this often?" Emily asked gently. Nathan shook his head. "No, before, it was just me. And Ethan." She didn't say anything, just offered a look that felt soft. Not pity, not judgment, just presence. A presence that made you want to stay. When dinner ended, Lily hugged Ethan goodbye and tugged on her mother's hand. "I like it here, Mommy. It's fun like home." Emily glanced at Nathan. He met her eyes, and for the first time, they held that gaze long enough to realize something had shifted. It wasn't awkwardness. It wasn't the formality of employer and nanny. It was something softer, something honest, a quiet respect, and, just maybe, a beginning of admiration. The weeks that followed passed in rare peace. Emily was officially hired. No more trial period, no more anxiety about being asked to leave the place that had started to feel like home. Each morning, Lily eagerly picked out her dress. Ethan counted the days until Sister Lily would visit again, and Nathan, though reserved, had grown used to the comforting presence of the mother and daughter who now filled his once empty apartment with warmth. They shared dinners, Sunday walks in the park nearby, and quiet little moments, like when Nathan stood silently watching Emily tie Lily's hair, or when she gently wiped ink off Ethan's fingers. Time seemed to move more slowly in those moments. Emily started to feel something she hadn't in years. Stability, a sense of belonging. For the first time in what felt like forever, she no longer woke up in a panic about overdue bills. She no longer faced the world alone. In this space, with these three people, things felt lighter. Then came that morning. Just one phone call, one name flashing across the screen. Andrew. It only took a second. The entire world Emily had worked so hard to build began to tremble. Her hand trembled slightly as she answered. His voice came through, smooth and smug. "Still scraping by, Emily? I heard you're playing nanny for some rich guy now. Clever but exhausting, I'm sure." Emily clenched the phone. "What do you want?" "I want to see my daughter, and I'm seriously considering filing for custody. I can offer a better life. You know that." She went silent. It felt like a bucket of ice had been poured down her spine. Every cell in her body went rigid. "You never cared about her. You have no right." "Courts don't care about feelings, Emily. They care about facts. And I have plenty of proof that your life is unstable and unsuitable for raising a child." He hung up, just like that, leaving her frozen at the table. She sat there, staring blankly. Lily cheerfully spooned oatmeal into her mouth, unaware that their entire world could collapse at any moment. That afternoon, at Nathan's apartment, Emily tried to mask her exhaustion, but Nathan noticed. While the children played, he asked her to step onto the balcony. "What's going on?" he asked gently but firmly. Emily looked at him, this time unable to hide the fear. "Andrew, my ex, wants to fight for custody of Lily." Nathan didn't say anything for a few seconds. The wind tugged at Emily's hair. Her eyes shimmered with unfallen tears. "He says he'll use everything against me, that I'm just a single mother with no assets, no job stability, nothing to offer." Nathan listened closely. "He has money." "And power," Emily nodded. "He's a lawyer. He knows how to hit where it hurts." Silence hung heavy between them, a kind of silence that suffocates. Then Nathan spoke, slowly, deliberately. "If you were married, he'd lose that advantage." Emily turned to him, stunned. What are you saying?" "I'm saying this seriously, Emily. If we got married, legally, you'd have a stable household on paper. A husband with income, a home, a foundation. Everything a man like him wouldn't be able to discredit." Emily choked on her breath. She hadn't expected that. And she certainly hadn't expected a proposal under such circumstances. Emily's heart pounded, not just because of the offer, but because of the terrifying possibility that someone was choosing to stand by her again. Her mind screamed caution, but her heart, it dared to hope. Was it foolish to accept kindness from someone who didn't love her yet? Or brave to believe that love could grow where trust already bloomed? After that conversation on the balcony, Emily couldn't sleep that night. Nathan's offer replayed in her mind again and again. Marriage, not for love, but to protect her child. Logically, it made sense, but emotionally, she was a storm. A woman who had once been broken, how could she walk into a legal bond without dragging her past along with her? The next morning, while Lily and Ethan played in the living room, Nathan approached her quietly. "If you decide, my offer still stands." Emily looked at him, this time without looking away. She saw steadiness in his eyes and trust. "Let's do it," she said softly. For her. Less than a week later, they stood side by side in a small room at Chicago City Hall. No white dress, no flowers, no fancy rings. Just two people dressed plainly, holding hands in a silence too deep to explain. The clerk read the vows, and Emily heard her heartbeat pounding in her ears. "Do you take him as your husband?" She nodded. "Do you take her as your wife?" Nathan gave a quiet smile. "I do." As they stepped out of the building, sunlight poured over them. Lily ran up first, Ethan right behind her. Both wrapped their arms around their new mom and new dad with contagious laughter. "We're a real family now, right, Mommy?" Lily beamed. "Yes, sweetheart, we really are." They moved in that same week. Emily and Lily settled into Nathan's apartment. A second couch was added to the living room, children's drawings appeared on the fridge, and even the quietest corners came alive, with Lily's pink cup, Ethan's comic books, and the smell of Emily's homemade muffins. Nathan wasn't overly expressive, but he was always present. He helped Lily with homework, sat beside Emily with a book while the kids slept, and brought her tea each evening. No words, just a quiet nod. Day by day, Emily felt the walls inside her softening. The fear of being left behind faded. Nathan never said, "I love you." But the way he left a light on when she came home late, the way he fixed Ethan's blanket, or the way he sliced an apple for Lily, those were his love languages. One night, after the apartment had gone quiet, Emily sat next to Nathan on the couch. The TV was on, but neither was really watching. The screen flickered softly. The heater hummed in the background, and the light was low and warm. She turned to him, hesitating. "Do you regret it?" she asked. He looked at her. "Regret what?" "Marrying me." He stared at her for a long moment, then shook his head. "No, I think it might be the best thing I've ever done." Emily didn't respond, but when she rested her head on his shoulder for the first time, she felt at peace. Not long after the wedding, the official lawsuit arrived. Andrew Morrison, Emily's ex-husband, was seeking full custody of Lily, claiming the mother lives in an unstable environment unsuitable for the emotional development of a child. Emily froze as she read the cold lines on the legal notice. Nathan placed a firm hand on her shoulder, his voice calm and steady. "We'll fight this. Together." The court date came faster than she expected. The family court in downtown Chicago wasn't glamorous, but stepping inside felt like walking into a battlefield. Andrew arrived in an expensive suit, accompanied by his personal attorney, a sharp, calculating woman with eyes like ice. The hearing began. Andrew took the stand first, speaking with the composure of someone used to convincing juries. "I only want what's best for my daughter. Emily has heart, but lacks stability. She lived in rundown housing, has no stable job, and now resides with a man she barely knows." His lawyer presented a folder of photographs, secretly taken images of Emily hugging Nathan in the park, the two walking Lily hand in hand, even a moment where Emily kissed Nathan on the forehead at a playground. "We believe this marriage was staged to create the appearance of a stable life for the sake of this custody hearing." Emily's stomach turned. Her fingers trembled in her lap, and her eyes stung. Nathan's attorney stood next, a silver-haired man with a calm, grounded demeanor. He opened his laptop and presented a timeline: Nathan's financial records, Lily's medical and school history, and most notably, Andrew's own troubled past. Mr. Morrison was arrested for disorderly conduct in 2018. Records showed drug use, emotional abuse toward his former spouse, my client. Andrew shifted uncomfortably. His composure cracked as he slammed a hand lightly against the table. The judge called for a private interview with the children, Ethan and Lily. Ethan walked in first. He sat upright, voice calm. "Uncle Nathan is the only family I have left, and Ms. Emily, she reminds me of my mom. I don't want anyone to take that away." Then Lily entered. She wore a little floral dress, clutching her teddy bear. "Mommy makes the best oatmeal. She hugs me when I'm scared. I don't want to live with someone I don't even remember." No one in the courtroom remained unaffected. The judge, a middle-aged woman, nodded slowly as she wrote her notes. Her face was unreadable, but something in her eyes had shifted. As the hearing ended, Emily stepped out of the courtroom in silence. Nathan held her hand tightly. "No matter what happens," he said, "you're not alone." Emily looked at him, her eyes misted, and for the first time, she truly believed him. 1 week after the hearing, Emily received the call from the court. The voice on the other end echoed in her ears. "The judge has ruled. You are granted full custody. Mr. Andrew Morrison will have supervised visitation rights under limited conditions." Emily didn't respond at first. She gripped the phone tightly, afraid that if she let go, the moment might vanish. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not from fear this time, but from sheer relief. Nathan was playing with Lily in the living room. When Emily walked in, he only needed to look into her eyes to understand. He stood, said nothing, and wrapped his arms around her. "We did it?" he whispered. Lily looked up at her mom, then at Nathan. "Mommy, are you crying? Why?" Emily crouched to hug her daughter, pressing her face gently into Lily's soft hair. "I'm just happy, sweetheart." In the days that followed, the apartment felt different, brighter somehow. There were no more threatening calls, no more legal letters, just mornings filled with giggles, the smell of toasted bread, and soft music playing in the kitchen. Emily used to eat breakfast alone, crouched beside a space heater, half awake and fully anxious. Now she sipped coffee while Lily giggled at Ethan's cereal mustache, and Nathan hummed low tunes in the kitchen. It wasn't perfection. It was peace. Nathan, who had lived in silence and sorrow for so long, was rediscovering the warmth he never thought he'd feel again. He realized it wasn't just Ethan who had healed, but himself, too. One late evening, after the kids had gone to bed, Emily was folding laundry when Nathan approached. He didn't speak at first, just gently placed his hand over hers, stopping the motion. "Thank you for trusting me," he said softly. Emily smiled. "You're the first person who made me feel like I wasn't alone." Nathan hesitated a moment. Then, with quiet certainty, he said, "You came here as a solution, but somewhere along the way, you became the best thing that ever happened to me." Emily looked at him, her eyes misted. She didn't need flowery promises, just truth. And this time, she knew. It was real. When he leaned in to kiss her, it was no longer out of legal obligation. It was the first real touch between two hearts that had found love. After everything. Love didn't arrive with grand declarations. It came through warm dinners, gentle hugs, and the quiet way two people could look at each other and say everything without a word. And slowly, both Emily and Nathan understood. They were no longer each other's solution. They were home. Months after the court victory, Nathan asked Emily a second time. This time, not for legal reasons, but for love. "Would you want a real wedding?" he asked as they cleaned up after dinner. Emily looked up, her eyes sparkling under the soft kitchen light. She didn't answer right away, just smiled. A quiet, certain nod. The ceremony took place on a gentle autumn morning in a small park near Lake Michigan. Cool breeze, clear skies, green grass. Nothing extravagant, just close friends, wildflowers, and soft acoustic music. Emily wore a simple white dress, her hair in a loose, low bun. Nathan looked sharp in a light gray suit. Lily, the flower girl, tossed petals with glee, while Ethan, serious in his best man role, carried the rings on a small pillow he had picked himself. As the officiant spoke the vows, Emily and Nathan locked eyes. No masks, no pretending. What stood between them now was trust, real love, and the battles they had already won together. "Do you agree to call each other brother and sister?" Emily asked after the ceremony, crouching beside Ethan and Lily. "Yes," they chimed in unison, then burst into laughter. "Brother!" Lily shouted, wrapping her arms around Ethan. Okay, little sister." Ethan blushed but smiled wide. From that day on, the apartment breathed a different air. All four cooked together. Nathan washed veggies, Emily seasoned the dishes, and the kids fought over who got to pour the batter. Mornings were for breakfast and drop-offs, evenings for board games, reading, or just lying together listening to music. Ethan taught Lily how to spell. Lily taught Ethan how to fold paper cranes. Emily was no longer a lonely mother, and Nathan no longer a man stuck in grief. One weekend, the family sat around the dining table. Nathan opened his laptop, mischief in his eyes. "I think it's time we went on a trip." "Where, Dad?" Ethan asked, eyes lighting up. "There's a cabin by the lake, near the mountains. Trails, bikes, trees." "I want to bring my teddy bear," Lily shouted. Emily looked at the three faces around her, buzzing with excitement. Her heart felt full, not because of anything grand, but because of the small, true things. Their broken pieces had come together, not perfectly, but strong enough to be called a family. It had been more than 6 months since they officially became a family. Life wasn't always smooth. Some mornings were rushed, Lily spilled milk on the table, Ethan forgot his homework, and Emily had to sprint to catch the train. But somehow, none of it felt exhausting, because underneath all of it was a sense of safety. The feeling of being waited for, being heard, of having warm meals and soft laughter filling every corner of the home. Emily was usually the first to wake. This morning was no different. She stood in the kitchen, pouring coffee, watching the morning fog settle over Chicago's rooftops through the window. Nothing extraordinary. Yet her heart felt quietly full. She glanced around the kitchen, a space that once belonged to someone else, now breathing with her life. Lily's apron with a heart drawing hung beside the oven. Tiny photos lined the fridge. Ethan's bright smile, Nathan hugging Lily, all four of them lying on the grass one sunny afternoon. Someone wrapped their arms around her from behind. "Morning?" Nathan murmured, voice still thick with sleep. Emily leaned into him. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, better than ever." The kids burst into the kitchen minutes later. Lily skipped in and suddenly threw her arms around Nathan. "Good morning, Dad?" Nathan froze for a second, then bent down and hugged her tighter. He didn't say anything, just smiled. A real deep smile. Ethan walked up to Emily, hesitating. "Can I call you Mom?" Emily knelt down and embraced him. "Of course, sweetheart. Any time." She knew in that moment, that question, that word, was the most beautiful answer to everything they had fought for. Emily felt her breath catch. That word, Mom, held the weight of every sleepless night, every sacrifice, every silent prayer whispered into the darkness. She didn't cry, but her arms trembled as she held him tighter. That evening, the whole family piled on the couch, tangled in a cozy mess of limbs and laughter. Emily closed her eyes and smiled. She used to think happiness was a luxury, that a woman like her, single, scarred by the past, had no right to dream of family. But she had learned something. Happiness didn't have to be perfect. It just needed the right people, the right timing, and the courage to begin again. And she did it. They did. They had chosen each other, day by day, gesture by gesture, name by name. It was just a regular morning. Nothing grand happened. But for Emily, that was exactly where real happiness began.